Honest agenda for Dangote Refinery, as lawmakers are proposing, as many Nigerians are calling for, which is not a bad thing though, but it has its positives and its negatives. And I always like to look at its positives. If there must be a law banning the importation of refined petrol products into Nigeria to encourage Dangote Refinery, then there must also be a law in Nigeria banning the importation of cars into Nigeria to encourage local car manufacturers in Nigeria, even though you call them mere assembly plants. Dangote, Aliko Dangote as a person, and Dangote refineries cannot be cannot be given special treatment in Nigeria, cannot be given the monopoly he seeks just because he's Dangote. No, that's where I have an issue. Another area where I have an issue is the fact that Dangote Refinery is not a Nigerian company. Many still make the mistake that it is, for two reasons. Number one, the majority shareholder of Dangote Refinery is not Nigerian. Dangote, Aliko Dangote as a person, is just a front for Dangote Refineries. And what you find is that a lot of the politicians also just hide behind Dangote Refinery or Dangote. So he's just fronting for them. Let Dangote open his books and show Nigerians who his shareholders are for the group as Dangote Group, and for Dangote Refinery, Dangote Cement. Let us see what happens, or who are those lurking or hiding behind the curtains as shareholders. Then it will be clear to Nigerians whether Dangote Refinery is really a Nigerian company. That's number one. Number two, why I say Dangote Refinery is not a Nigerian company is the fact that Dangote Refinery is sited in a free trade zone area. Many people do not understand the implication of that. It simply means that Dangote Refinery is backed and controlled more by IMF and World Bank rules and regulations than the laws of Nigeria. That's what it means. And to also now dash Dangote Refinery a Lekki deep sea port, which is also in a free trade zone area, simply means that it is easier for Dangote Refinery to ship his goods abroad than to sell them in Nigeria. So these are the two reasons that make me say Dangote Refinery is not a Nigerian company, even though it is sited in a geographical location called Nigeria. The way Dangote is no different from MTN or Stanbic IBTC, foreign companies in Nigeria that are partly owned by Nigerians. That's what Dangote is. Would you say MTN is a Nigerian company just because it is sited in Nigeria or it has a Nigerian CEO or MD? No, it's still South African. That's what Dangote is. Who is the majority shareholder of Dangote Refinery? Now, let's come back to the issue. All of these call for special treatment for Dangote Refinery. Many may not realize it. They think it is a patriotic move, but it's an unpatriotic move. But it seems to be gaining traction. So, what do we need to do as a country? If Dangote gets the federal government to ban the importation of refined petrol products, because that's what he seeks to do. He may come out and tell all manner of stories that that's not what he wants, but everybody can see it. It's visible to the blind, it's audible to the deaf, that what Dangote seeks is monopoly. Whether or not he gets it depends on we Nigerians. Because right now he's trying to get the federal government to give him that monopoly. He's trying to get the federal government to ban the importation of refined petrol products. He's trying to get everybody to come to him. And the manner he's going about it is where the problem actually lies. He wants to sell to major oil marketers. He wants to be the one to sell to independent oil marketers. He's the one trying to be the one to sell to petrol stations owners and all that. Virtually, if Dangote Refinery is allowed to operate the way he wants to operate, what it means is that he will kick the DAPCON, the depot owners, out of business because he has his own depot. He will kick the major oil marketers who have tank farms. He will kick them out of business. Then the independent independent marketers, he'll keep them out of business. So he'll just be dealing directly, almost directly, with people who come to buy from him in tankers. Invariably, the way he's going about it, that is his end game. And that is why there is this ongoing tussle now between him and all of these associations, the DAPCON, the MOMAN, the IPMAN, and the Petron. That's why he's having these issues with them, because he's seeking monopoly. Now, many people may say, oh yeah, but we are producing refined petrol products in Nigeria through Dangote Refinery. Yeah. And so that justifies the ban on importation of refined petrol products so that it will reduce the pressure on our naira. Let me tell you, or let me say this. Many of you already know this, but let me still just say it. Which will be better for Nigeria? Or all of them can be better for Nigeria. But just look at this. If we ban the importation of refined petrol products into Nigeria, should we not also ban the importation of used car of what is it called? Vehicles into Nigeria? Ready-made vehicles, the importation of landcruisers, the importation of Range Rovers, Lamborghinis, Ferraris. Shouldn't we ban those to encourage our own local manufacturing so that the price of new cars that are made in Nigeria can come down to such a point where it is cheaper to buy a new car in Nigeria than to import used ones? So long as a used car imported from outside the country is cheaper than a new car in Nigeria, our automobile industry will not grow. So far as government officials, private individuals prefer to import used cars, not just used cars now. I've talked about used cars. They prefer to import new cars from outside the country. So far as they prefer to do that and they fail to patronize the local car manufacturers in Nigeria, then our own automobile car industries will not grow and jobs will not be created. The beautiful jobs, the high-paying jobs, high-paying jobs, high-value jobs in the automotive industry are already, they are shipped out when we buy imported cars. Innoson or Nord or what's this other one? I can't remember. All the local car manufacturers in Nigeria will improve. They will do better when we patronize them in Nigeria. The market is there. So if anybody is calling for a ban on the importation of refined petrol products, then two things must happen. Two things, actually. One, efforts must also now be put in the way Dangote Refinery is being supported and encouraged. Other modular refineries must also now be supported and encouraged. And our own refineries, state-owned refineries, must also now be supported and encouraged. That's on the one hand. That must happen if Dangote is to have his way and get the federal government to ban the importation of refined petrol products. Then the other thing that must happen is that we must also now ban the importation of cars, whether new or used, into Nigeria so that we can focus on our own local manufacturing. If we don't do this, then to just be treating or giving Dangote refineries preferential treatment and giving him the monopoly that he so desperately wants. This is how to build Nigeria. I'm about building Nigeria. Right now, because of Dangote, Nigerians are living abroad in Nigeria because the cost of petrol now is cheaper in a place like Texas in America than in Nigeria. Cost of electricity is cheaper in some states in America than in Nigeria. Meanwhile, the salaries are a fraction in Nigeria of what the salaries are in the US. This should not be so. We have to build a country that works for everybody. And in so doing, we can't allow individuals to become more powerful than the state. That's what we're doing if we support only Dangote Refinery. It must go round. In fact, I have no issues with Dangote refineries so far as our state-owned refineries are working. To me, right now, it appears as though Dangote refineries is behind the sabotage of our own state-owned refineries. Firstly, so that his refinery can gain the monopoly 6. And secondly, probably because he wants revenge for Yaradua taking the refineries from him after Obasanjo sold it to him in 2007. So perhaps because of those two reasons, he's seeking, it's in his interest that our own state-owned refineries do not work. And I am saying, if you're going to give Dangote refineries this massive support with public funds and policies that give him the monopoly he seeks, then we should do it for other refineries. The energy and the attention that has been given to Dangote refinery should be given to Walter Smith, should be given to Edo refinery, should be given to the other refineries. And then much more importantly, that same attention and even more should be given to our own state-owned refinery. That's my point. Once we do that, if our state-owned refineries are working, even if they are not able to meet the needs of all Nigerians, of course they can't, but it will give a good reference point, a good benchmark for us to see whether Dangote Refineries is acting in the interest of Nigerians or not. Already I know he is not, because he's just seeking to maximize profit within a very short time. When people build their refineries elsewhere in the world, they do so with a mindset. In fact, there's a benchmark. You can't say because you spent $20 billion building a refinery, then you must make all the money from the refinery in 1 year. No. 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, all the investment cost is spread over that, so that the production cost or refining cost of refined petrol product is spread over that 20 years or 25 years. So doing, the production cost comes down because the refineries, they last very, very long. But what Dangote is doing is trying to get the so-called 20 billion out in 1 year. Yeah, I guess that's why his so-called net worth has gone from 12 billion to 27 billion in a space of 1 month. You can't do that on the blood and sweat of poor Nigerians because they are the ones bearing the brunt. Anyway, I'm not surprised. Dangote Refineries is just doing what it did, what it did with Dangote Cement. Nigeria gave him access to our raw materials, limestone, which belongs to Nigeria, the federal government, according to the Land Use Act. But then what do you have? He takes that limestone, packages it into cement, and sells it at exorbitant prices to Nigerians. He has never acted in the interest of Nigerians, not with cement, not with sugar, not with anything. Always seeking to exploit Nigerians. And that's okay. He's a capitalist, he's a businessman. He's there to make profits. But he cannot be making profits while we see a glaring sabotage of state-owned infrastructures that provide the same alternate services sabotaged. just so that he can continue to thrive. No. And that's what is about to happen with this move that he's making to get the federal government to ban the importation of refined petrol products. And this is why DAPCON, DAPMAN, Moman, Ipman, Petron, this is why all these people have taken him to court. Let's wait and see what happens. But so far, he's been very successful. I'm talking about Dangote now and Dangote Refinery. They have been so successful at getting Tinubu to do whatever the hell they want. They have weaponized blackmail. They came out the other day. Dangote himself came out and said, oh, we have blending plant in Malta. That's why they're trying to sabotage me. I will say more if they don't dance to my demand. And guess what? After coming out to make such a heavy allegation against the federal government, rather than the federal government to take decisive actions against him, the federal government continues to dance to his tune, to the tune of Dangote Refinery. So I am suspecting and I'm afraid that if the people do not rise up and speak against this, Dangote Refinery will also get the federal government to ban the importation of refined petrol products to give him the monopoly that he wants. And if that happens, Nigerians will continue to be the ones to bear the brunt. They'll be the ones to continue to pay high prices for petrol, as they pay high prices for electricity, high prices for school fees, high prices for food, high prices for everything, without getting commensurate increase in income or purchasing power. We don't want this. We don't need this. For the umpteenth time, I will reiterate, two things must happen. If Dangote must get or have his way by getting the federal government under Tinubu to ban the importation of refined petrol products, then two things must happen. We must also now give support to other refineries, whether modular or our own state-owned refinery, to also operate. It can't just be Dangote Refinery. Whether it has 650,000 barrels per day capacity does not matter. We can't hang the whole future of a country in the hands of one man. Antitrust laws, proper antitrust laws, should not accept this. That's one thing that must happen. Other refineries must be encouraged also. The way we put $2.5 billion that they said is now 7.2% of Dangote into Dangote refineries. We must now also put the same investment in other modular refineries. And we must also now begin to shout sabotage, sabotage, the way we are shouting for Dangote now, for other modular refineries, and more importantly, for our state-owned refineries. All the talk about them being moribund, if we put $1 billion in there, it will revamp it will turn the infrastructure around. The second thing that must happen is that we must also now ban the importation of cars, particularly cars. We must ban the importation of fabrics, so that our local fabrics textile industry can thrive. But starting with cars, these lawmakers and government workers particularly should not be allowed to begin or to continue to import Escalades, Rolls Royce, Land Cruiser, Prado, Land Cruiser, Range Rover. They must not be They will not be allowed to continue to import those things if Dangote must have his way. Nigerians, we have a responsibility. Let us take action, speak about it, and push the federal government to do the right thing for the sake of Nigerians.